Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome wherever you are in the world. We are so excited and ecstatic to have you with us here today on USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and I'm joining you from my studio here in Boca Raton, Florida. And our show today is The Journey of an Author. We already have a show called The Corner Bookstore, and that's been very successful. And I decided to go ahead and start this additional show so that we can spotlight truly incredible authors from around the world. Today, we have one of our own team members here, Tracy Cram Perkins. She's joining us from the great state of Washington in the United States. And she is someone I think so much of. I have the highest regard and respect for her. She helped me through a very difficult time with my mother, who was diagnosed with dementia, and she subsequently passed away in August of last year. Tracy is the author of this book, Dementia Home Care, How to Prepare Before, During, and After. And she has been wildly successful with this book. She has her own television show here as well on USA Global TV and Radio. And it's the Dementia Home Care Show, Before, During, and After. Let us welcome author Tracy Cram Perkins. Hello.
Well, hi, Dr. Jacalyn. What a great intro. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you for being here. And I'm so glad that you're not with us at Oh Dark 100 like you will be tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be a little dark tomorrow.
You are a very early riser, and you've had an incredible story to date, and I know it's just going to continue. But what I really want to talk about today is you are super successful with this book. You are helping people all over the world. You have taken care of 4 family members diagnosed with dementia. So we're going to get the backstory, and then we're going to talk about how you've become so successful as an author and how I'm sitting here not so much. So I'm here to learn from you. Before we talk about the book, tell us about your journey as a caregiver.
Well, as you mentioned, I am a 4-time dementia caregiving survivor. It was when I was taking care of my father, who, after my mother passed, we didn't know he had Alzheimer's disease, and my sisters and I were doing daily checks on him. My younger sister found him one evening, face planted on his sofa, unconscious. When he came to in the hospital, he was diagnosed with moderate Alzheimer's disease. And because I didn't have power of attorney, and they believed, because of past history, that people who take their family members home will just dump them in their apartment and they'll be back in the hospital in 3 days, they wouldn't let me have him. So then we started a 5-month battle of trying to get custody of my father while he was worked his way through the system. He didn't believe he belonged there, so he became an expert at escaping, which sounds kind of strange, but somebody with moderate Alzheimer's disease can still have the skills that they learned throughout their lifetime. It doesn't go away necessarily, and it can sometimes come back. So what ended up happening is he would escape 5 times from a facility. They would move him to the next more secure facility. He finally got to the most secure facility in our area, and he noticed that there was something wrong with the plate glass window in his room. When his roommate was going off to physical therapy, my dad stayed dressed in his pajamas and slippers, unscrewed the window, slid the plate glass window out, climbed out, put it back in and mounted it correctly, and then went for his walk. And of course, when they finally discovered that he was gone, they panicked because there are no cameras facing patient windows. So they had no idea how he got out, and they had to call 911. When they started getting panicked phone calls to 911 about an elderly gentleman crossing a major highway against the light, and it was 6 lanes of traffic. um, that's when we got our luckiest break because the sheriff who found him had a family member who had dementia. And so instead of, cajoling him or yelling at him, he went up to him and just said, "You look really tired." Because my dad, at this point, had walked 5 miles and he was sitting on a guardrail leading into the major highway in our area. He or I should say the freeway. He asked him, he goes, "You look tired. Would you like a ride home?" And my dad said, "Sure." And so he got him into the car because my dad had never been in a police car before, and he let him sit up front. And the whole trip back, the police officer explained all the equipment in the front of the police car, and my dad had the best time ever. He gets back to this care facility, and they asked him, "How did you escape? How did you get out?" And he was in such a good mood. He was happy to show them because he loved to teach people. So he took them to his room and showed them the other window that was also matted incorrectly, explained how we figured it out, and then how to fix it. The maintenance staff then went through and found 30% of the windows in that facility had the same problem, and they fixed them. So he solved a problem they didn't even know they had, but that didn't change how they treated him, and every time he would go near a window or a door, they would scream at him. Finally, they put a wristband on him, and it wasn't until his last escape that and he successfully made it out. He hugged his favorite nurse. She disabled the alarm because it was going off while they were hugging, and then he saw her to the door. She walked out. He just waved goodbye, waited till she left, and then he had noticed the code for the guests. So he coded himself out, went for his last walk. They called me 2 days before Christmas and told me I had 5 days to find a place for my dad. Fortunately, and this is the part I left out of the story, um, we just got power of attorney the day before. So my husband and I canceled Christmas, scrambled around trying to get the house into what we thought was dementia friendly, and it wasn't. And then we brought him home on December 28th. We're sitting there, it's December, it's freezing cold outside. We're sitting around a crackly fire, and my dad said to me, "Tracy, I have Alzheimer's disease, not the plague. What does it take to be treated like a human being? That's all I'm asking." And I didn't know the answer. And to top that story off, we got him tucked into bed for his first night with us. He came back out 30 minutes later and said, "Tracy, something's wrong, but I don't know what it is." And he couldn't tell me. I checked his blood pressure. I checked his blood sugar because he was diabetic. I also knew he was a heart patient. I checked his pulse. None of these were the answer, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. So I called 911. The one thing I didn't check was his temperature. The paramedic took one look at him, said he's hypothermic, and then they told me they were gonna be back several times, and this was my dad, and I was not gonna let that happen. So that is what started my journey towards writing this book.
Tracy, I'm so taken back, and I've heard the story before, but I think about what it must have taken for your father to continuously try and be successful of getting himself out of there. And I'm wondering, is it because he wanted to come home? Is that what it was about?
Well, he wanted to go for a walk. He was happy anywhere he was as long as he got to do what he wanted to do. And for his entire life, you could not tell him no because he'd immediately go out and do it. So it was a huge trigger for him. If they said, "No, you can't go," well, he, in his mind, he's going, "I will show you." And then
Mhm.
he will do it. And as I mentioned before, it's the skills don't go away until they get to severe sometimes. And so he was very, very clever and could just figure out just simple ways, and he was very charming. And so he would disarm people. And also, because you have dementia, people look at you like you are less than. And so they always underestimated him.
I
It
just
was,
wanted to spotlight you there again
oh,
for a
okay.
moment because it's so incredible the story that you share, and I can relate to it. And I want to say I was on the phone with you at the time, but I don't remember. But I was broadcasting from this house, and my mother went out for a walk, and we had her on the Apple iTag or whatever it is, and it didn't even register. And a neighbor called and she's like, your mother is over by I-95, which is, when you talked about the highway.
Yeah.
And it's so strange because that's not something she ever would have done before, but there she was by the highway. So a question I want to ask you, and then we're going to get back to the book, is did your father express that you can recall at any time during these walks and what was going on? Did he ever say that he was afraid or that he was scared, that he didn't know where he was?
No, he never did. He did say he didn't wanna be where he was, which is why we were working really hard to get him out because he wasn't ready for skilled care. He really wasn't. He was too ambulatory, he was too with it, and what was really causing him the problems were the medications that they put him on, and I know you and I have talked about this before. They put him on 22 different medications to correct his behavior. They never looked at the drug interactions. So it was causing his behaviors. And now that's not gonna be the case for everybody, but we got lucky in that one of my friends said, "Take the list to a pharmacist, have them tell you what's happening to him, take it to his doctor, and get him off these drugs." And that's what we ended up doing, and he came back like a plant on Miracle Grow. I mean, it was so amazing.
A
It
great
was
analogy.
but it's funny because the other part to that is then I trusted him beyond his capabilities, which was a mistake. And that's when we had our first wandering incident that until I truly understood what his triggers were for wandering and how to build up a routine for him so he didn't have to do it and didn't feel like he needed to do it. He wandered away because I work from home and I was on the phone with the customer and he just didn't bother telling me he was leaving. So by the time I got off the phone, I started looking for him to go do whatever our next event was. He wasn't there. And I ran around the outside of the house. I didn't see him anywhere. I didn't see him on the street. So I called 911. I live in a small town. They told me they were too busy and couldn't help me, and I need to spend at least 15 minutes searching for him. And then the other part to this is I panicked. And even though I'd worn the same clothes for 3 days, I could not remember what he was wearing. It was just crazy. So I turned out my neighbors, and it turned out he was at one of my neighbors helping them fix something because 'cause he'd gone out in the yard to do some gardening, and they asked him to come over and help. So it wasn't like he was doing anything bad. I mean, he wasn't doing it on purpose. He just wanted to go help someone. So that's what he did.
I wish I had met your dad because he sounds truly amazing. And he's on your book cover, isn't he?
Oh, unfortunately, no, I wish that was my dad.
Oh my
We
gosh, I thought all this time it was your dad.
No, my but all the pictures I had weren't high enough resolution for the cover, so he sadly, he was rejected, so they
Oh,
used the I know, I was broke my heart, but I was very thrilled that they were able to get a gentleman that represented my father on the cover because it was really important to me to have a face for dementia because there are so many different faces of dementia that, just and to honor my father. Yeah, it was just that's really what it was.
well, I want to tell you seriously, since as long as I've known you with this book, I thought it was your dad. So that's you always be dad to me, okay?
Oh, that's
So
fine.
I want to talk a little bit about the book. Thank you for sharing the background and for going back there because I know sometimes it can be painful. We think we're over it, but then some little thing
Mhm.
pops into our head. But first of all, what I love about this book is the size of it. Okay, this is not the typical size that you'll see of books. And I just like the way that it feels. I don't know why. I just like the way the cover and the back cover, how it feels. And the way that you've written it, and I have a signed copy, by the way, everyone. Uh, it's so easy to read through, and there's so much information that's packed in here. And I'm wondering if you've gotten any feedback. You've done book signings all over the place. You're like a rock star with this. Has anyone shared with you the fact that the size or the font or just the aesthetics that made a difference in why they purchased the book?
Oh, absolutely. I have gotten some of the most fabulous feedback. So, unless you have macular degeneration where you would like need a magnifier for the page, I've had so many people come up and say, "Thank you for making the font large." And I have to thank my editor every day for this because she chose the size of the book because it's very expensive to do an 8.5 by 11 book. And then also to do the large print, but fortunately, she's also the same age I am, and your vision starts to go a little bit, and when you're stressed, you may not be able to find your glasses right away, and if you have something that's in larger print, it's easier to read. It's just easier on the eyes. So that really was part of the impetus there, but so many things went into this book. A lot of people have thanked me just for the step-by-step instructions that are in there, putting in things that they would never have thought of. The favorite feedback I get back has to do with the distraction technique chapter because it's helped so many people and it helps them understand why their loved one's doing something, why reality orientation doesn't work, and how to get into their shoes so that you can walk them back to a place of safety. So it's been a really fun journey for me. I get and thank you to everyone who has commented because it really means the world to me and it tells me whether I've done well or not done well and what I can do in the future. So I really appreciate that feedback.
Thank you, Tracy. And for those just joining us across all the platforms, we're talking about dementia home care and the incredible author, one of our own team members here at USA Global TV and Radio, Tracy Cram Perkins. So Tracy has written this book and the sales have been exponential. I remember, I don't even know how long ago you told me that it 17,000?
Oh, we're actually no, not that far yet. We just came up on 14. So
14,000. Your
14,000.
17 is
Yeah.
very soon. It's soon,
Yes.
Tracy. For anybody out there who's written a book, 14,000 copies is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I truly think I wanted to point this out. Just the table of contents in and of itself, the way that it's written, it's so extensive. It's extensive, the amount of information that's in here. And Tracy, one of the things that I really want to commend you on is having gone through the process myself and having been, I wouldn't say highly emotional through a lot of it and maybe judgmental through a lot of it. I think if I were to sit down and write a book, that I would forget a lot of the details because the emotions become overwhelming. How did you manage to capture all the nuances and the details of the various behaviors that your family members demonstrated and that you actually took the time to write down about?
Well, one of my therapeutic outlets was journaling. And so, very naturally, I would just write down everything that happened so I could just get it out of my head and then move on with my day. But I did a lot of journaling. Also, I read over 30 books while I was doing caregiving, and I couldn't find the answers all in one place. And I could only remember I found it in a spot, but not where it was. And that would be like 3 weeks would go by, and I'd find it when I was looking for something else. So I started making notes about where I was finding everything so that I could make sure that I could find it again. And I realized later on that this would probably help other people. And my dad, again, at the beginning, had posited the question, what does it take to be treated like a human being? And to this day, that still haunts me. So I will do anything I can to figure that out.
It's amazing because it's such a difficult time of life that someone you love and you've honored, and there they are literally losing their mind in front of you. And you have a life that you were living before this, and there's bills to be paid and people to be loved and things to be done. And yet, this person requires a lot of attention. Now, some people will put the person, when I say put, they'll say, it's too much. I can't do it. There's no one in the family who can do it. And you need resources. You have resources. You have appendixes. You have all kinds of information, even in the back of the book. Okay, we didn't even get to the meat of the book, but the number of resources that you've cited here, how did you manage to do that and how long did that take?
Oh, that took me it was organic, but it took me several years. I was going crazy not being able to find the help I need, and I knew it had to already be out there because we'd been talking about Alzheimer's disease since the '80s. So I knew there had to be stuff out there. It was just not under one umbrella. So I would search and search and search. I would look in people's books and see what they referenced. I would find resources online. I would talk to librarians, anybody I could talk to that would say, hey, I've got this really great resource for X, whether it was help with prescriptions, disposing prescriptions, getting financial aid, finding an attorney, whatever it was someone needed, even adaptive clothing. I just was like a magnet for it. It was just like, I have to find it. When you put that energy out in the universe, it usually comes back to you. So the more questions I was asking, the more people were giving me answers. And there were at the time I wrote the book, I had over 130. Now it's gone closer to 150 on my website. So there's a lot more that I've added since then that have come online that didn't exist when I was caring for my dad.
And Tracy, today in 2024, you are an expert in this area and you are surrounding yourself with other experts, and there's a community that you have built. And I really give you so much credit. I really admire you for that, because more and more people seem to be getting diagnosed with dementia. But today, our focus is on the journey of an author, and that's your journey. You went from being a caregiver to being this award winning author, and something that many of us, like me, raising my hand, struggle to. There's one thing for Amazon to say, for you to see your number one, but for other awards and in the big scope of life as an author, you've really made it. And I think it would be amazing if you were able to give some kind of outline about what were the steps that you took.
So I knew I wanted to be a writer. So before I even took care of my dad, I was like into fiction, but I knew absolutely nothing and I had no skills whatsoever. So I joined a writers organization called the Pacific Northwest Writers PNWA Association. Sorry, I went blank. Anyway, I joined there first to start learning the skills and what it takes to actually be a writer. Because without that knowledge, I would have had no clue where to turn, what to look for, or even how poor my writing skills were. I mean, I thought I was a fabulous writer because I've been writing my whole life. I had no idea the nuances and mechanics that could go into this, or the amazing things that you have to look at just to flesh out a character. So here I was. I was trying to write comedy and write humorous stuff, and then my dad gets ill. I put that on the side, but I made sure that I had people covering for me during that conference every single year so that I could go and learn more about writing. It was my outlet to keep from going insane. With all of that knowledge, I started learning the business side of writing. I started learning how to promote and market, which were very, very helpful, and from authors and experts all over the country. So, with that knowledge in hand, I was able to take that and go, okay, I have a journal, I have a list of resources, I have all these books I read. I need to do something with this, but there was not the book I needed wasn't out there. So what is the book I need to look like? And that's how this all started. And then I started practicing pitching because at the group that I belong to, they actually bring agents and editors in. And it doesn't matter if you have a book or not, you can still pitch to them and have them give you feedback and learn A, what they're looking for, and B, if it's up to snuff. Because I didn't know if my writing was up to snuff or not yet. I didn't know what a critique group was until joined this group. I didn't know what beta readers were. I didn't know any of the writing stuff, and I also certainly didn't know anything about marketing. All I knew about marketing was it ends up on a bookstore shelf and they sell it for me. So that doesn't exactly work really well. But what I did learn is that, okay, we now have the advent of social media, which as for authors is a really great thing because then we can actually reach out and talk to our readers. We can exchange ideas with other authors that are our peers, and we can do like even mail exchange, list exchanges. We can do all sorts of things to grow our audience. We can also do things like advertising our books on BookBub or Reddit or some of the other things, or do free giveaways in swaps for reviews, because one of the hardest things that authors struggle with, and if you have a book you love, please, wherever you bought it from, leave a review because that really helps other people know that the book is legit and whether or not they want to read it. So it was learning about all of these things, putting them together, and then where to go to advertise it, and also learning some of the tools to use. Because Dr. Jacalyn, you and I had talked about using Publisher's Rocket when you were at the corner bookstore one time together, and so it's using learning about tools, knowing that they're there, uh, getting trusted reading partners, having people that you work with that you like, so that you can get something out in publication. Now, I went traditional publishing, which is a very different ball of wax compared to self-publishing. Uh, and there's a whole lot of different things that you have to go through. So I knew I wanted to go to traditional because I wanted to be wide release so I could get this in the hands of everybody I could think of that would never have heard of me before. And so I ended up learning how to write book proposals. I learned how to pitch to agents and editors, how to write query letters. And so learning to do all these things, and then finding out that the reason I was getting rejected was because I wasn't wording it properly. So then I had to learn, okay, what is the type of wording for my particular genre? And I had to look around and hunt really hard to find that because I didn't know. And after I started learning how to do that and what people were looking for, and also to infuse genuine emotion into my writing, it made all the difference, and it started opening doors for me. Oh, you have no sound. You're on mute.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
just applauding you here. It's just phenomenal what you just shared because some of those things I've never even heard of before. And I'm wondering, this is not something that you were doing full time. You had
No,
other things that on your plate. How much time were you dedicating to this? Was it every day, every week?
for the writing portion, or
Yes.
for okay. So, excuse me for that. Caregiving took up 99% of my time. Writing was like I got 15, maybe 20 minutes, and it wasn't every single day. It just was around crises. So the only thing I did dedicate myself to was making sure that I journaled for at least 15 minutes to half an hour, just so I could vent my spleen. And that was really where I got my writing habit from. Because you only need to write, if you're going to write a novel, you only need to write one sentence a day, and in a year you have a novel. You
Mm.
can write two sentences, but I mean, whatever it is. But then you also have to understand structure. You also have to make sure that your characters are authentic, or your readers will put it down faster than you can blink your eye. I mean, so there's a lot of different things to it, because we have to figure out, okay, who is our ideal audience? Well, I can't, as an author, be my ideal audience. So I had to pick someone, and I had Susie Reader in my head that is going to be someone who's in their 60s, is going to be caring for a parent, is going to also be working full time, and possibly managing their kids or grandkids. So this is my ideal reader in my head, and this is who I was writing it for. And that's how I was able to kind of like dig into the emotion. Okay, what is this person feeling? Are they part of the sandwich generation? Are they an open faced sandwich? Are they by themselves, which is 90% of my audience doesn't have any support. Like you were kind of doing it mostly on your own. I had more support than most people because my husband was helping me, and I had friends around that had grown up with my parents, so they were kind of like extra siblings. So I had more help than the ordinary mortal, which they were also, some of them were in the medical profession and were giving me information to use from there that I made sure I included in the book. So it's just, you have to be willing to open yourself up for it, and then just have a habit. And again, it only takes, two sentences a day to write a book in a year.
So it's something that anyone can do. It's just a matter of putting paper to pen or typing or whatever it is. Now, a question I have for you is I've looked through this book, I've read this book many times, and you've got the resources, appendices in the back, but basically the book is 208 pages plus. How did you know when it was enough? How did you know when you should stop writing, when you finally had it? You didn't need to go back to it again? What do you remember about that moment?
Well, I had, with nonfiction, I had to submit a proposal, and so I created a outline of what I wanted the book to look like. And part of that, I wanted it to be a dementia map, which is why you have in front of you the 8-page table of contents, because I wanted to be able to have run my finger down that page tap that little item and turn to that page, and there was my answer. I didn't want it to be difficult. I wanted to make sure that nobody else was going through what I was going through. So I wrote that all down. I did not write the book in order because of the emotions that were involved in it. I had to leave some of it, like the elder abuse, I had to leave that to the very end because I could not cope with the emotions writing that chapter at first. So I had to get a lot of things out of my system first before I could actually complete that. And my poor beta readers, God bless them. Um, I was just feeding it to them chapter by chapter by chapter. And so I would schedule like a couple of weeks where they would be reading and then they'd send it back to me and I would set aside whatever I was working on writing wise and I would remold that chapter. And then I would send it back to 2 other people to read the next phase of that. And so I had several layers deep of beta readers that were, catching, correcting, helping. Some of them were actively caregiving, so they could give me feedback about, no, that's not helping me at all, or can you explain that better, or this doesn't make any sense. So that I could get it to the point where it is now. I needed that feedback because this is writing is not a one person, I'm a lone stranger riding into town. I mean, this is really, it's a group effort. And if you don't have enough support around you, you won't get honest feedback and you will write a flop that will be very, very painful, as I have done in the past. So it's having that help and support and people that you trust that will be honest with you, not rude, but just honest with you.
When you wrote this book, did you write it to be successful or famous, or did you write it just initially to share your feelings and hopefully help someone?
I wanted to make sure no one went through what I went through. That was my whole goal. It didn't matter to me if I sold 10 copies, 100 copies. I knew it had to get out there to help somebody, and I knew that I wasn't the only one that was going through this. I had so many people just on my street that were having the same problems I was. It was like, okay, I know that there's this large, very segmented audience, and I won't make a fortune on it, but I will at least be able to help people, and that was more my goal. If I make money, it would be on side hustles, not actually on the book itself. Because as a first-time author, you do not get paid a whole lot of money on your books. It's less than $1 per book.
I'm
So,
so glad that you brought that up because I don't think people realize that, first of all, if you're not going traditional publishing and you're going self-publishing like I am, my books that I have over here, they sell for 18.77, and I think I get $7 or something out of it. And then when I look to put the books through Ingram, Spark, and Barnes and Noble, and all of them, they take even more. I think it's 50% off the top,
mhm.
depending if you'll take returns or you won't take returns. So it is a difficult road to go, but you have done it and you continue to do it. What do you want from the book now? What's different? Like, how's that shifted? Do you want to
Well,
be rich and successful and famous
I
from the book?
Well, no big okay, here's my personal take on this. You get what you give. So I want to give this gift to as many people as I can. And then it comes back to me in ways I never expected. I mean, just I got an email from someone recently who was diagnosed with early moderate Alzheimer's disease, and she bought the book so that she could show her family what she wanted them to do to care for her. Those are the things that I get back from this, and it is really deeply emotional. As you can tell if I'm about to cry, but, it's that sort of thing because I have another step that I'm doing with this, and again, I was talking about side hustles. I am planning, and I am working on this. It's gonna take me a few years to get this out here, but I want a program out in the hardware stores because the last 3 years, I have been volunteering at my local hardware store, learning what people need to find out how to make their home more dementia friendly. I am going to make a program out of that that can be spread to hardware stores across the country to make that work. And so that is my next goal. But I mean, it's huge. It's going to take a lot of elbow grease and rolling up the sleeves on my part, but it will happen. It's just I'm willing to take that long road, and it's just your willingness to do that. And you, riches are I guess I'm not really interested in being wealthy or driving that really fancy car or whatever it is. I'm more interested in trying to help people get through this obstacle that I know how hard it is. I mean, when you go through having children, the first child, you're terrified that everything you're doing wrong and that they'll break or die or something awful will happen. By number two, you've learned to relax. By number three, it's like, okay, now the older ones can start raising them. By number four or on, it's like, oh, it's another kid. Okay. I went through four family members. No two were alike. Absolutely nothing was the same except for how to walk them back from a delusion or a hallucination, how to get them to a place of safety. I mean, there were certain things that were common among all of them, and it is so hard to learn. Learning not to do reality orientation where you're trying to get them into your world and you not wanting to get into theirs, that is something that is so hard. It took me 18 months to figure out that that's what I was doing to my dad, that I was actually harming him emotionally by trying to reorient him to where I was, not to walk him through to a place of safety from where he was. Because, and this is what I love, fear, false evidence appearing real. When you've got a family member that's having a hallucination, it is very real to them. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean that they aren't physically experiencing every emotion that goes through with them seeing a stranger staring at them, or seeing bugs crawling all over the place, or snakes crawling out of the carpet, or whatever it is that they're seeing. Perhaps they think we've just gone to war. Whatever it is, you cannot force them back into reality. They've got holes in their brains. That information is gone. So you have to work with what's left and compassionately work with what's left in order to get them up to some place where they feel safe. And so I lost literally 18 months with my dad that I could have spent more quality time had I been able to emotionally wrap my arms around that and understand it. So the riches I get back are when people are just telling me it helped them.
And there's been so many, including me. And I remember just what you just shared. I remember my mother sitting at the kitchen table and telling me, "There's bugs crawling on me. There's bugs crawling on me." And I reached out to you, and that's not something you hear very often. I mean, I think to myself, that's something that maybe someone who was under the influence of something that they might feel that way, or something's coming out of the floor. Like, you don't really think these things are possible or happening, but it's true. And you look, it's
Mhm.
like, wow, that's my mother who's saying that. So you helped me so much. And your book, my sister has a copy of it as well. Both of us, it really is the Bible. And I know people who have dementia, and I've wanted to give it to them. I'm like, no, I can't give it to them because it has just, I know it just has sentimental value. I'm going to get upset. But where I want to go now is tell us about the book tours and the book signings. How do you get into Barnes and Noble to do this?
Oh, this is very cool. You will call Barnes& and Noble if you have your book stock there, and you will ask them who their CRM is. That's their customer relations manager, and they are the ones that book tours. You will find out when they have time available, or if you're going to be in the area, call them enough in advance. And there's because we're now post-pandemic, there are times when certain areas will close down and they won't be having people in because they don't want people getting the flu or getting sick. So, like over the winter, there's a lot of times where they're not going to allow book signings. But it's not that hard to strike a rapport as long as we're respectful of their time and their talent. They're very eager to help authors because helping authors helps them sell books. And one of the things that I'm very grateful for is they allow me to sell other authors' books too. So I will give them a list before I come and I'll say, these are the people in my peer group that have really awesome books. Please put them on my table and I will hand sell them. You do that, you will get in every time. Oh, and bring the staff donuts.
I love it. Now, when you're actually doing the book signing, do you think of something unique for each person, or do you have something this is maybe one, two, or three, and you switch?
Okay, here's what happens with book signings. People are asking me so many questions. All I can get out is writing my name, and half the time I can't even spell my name right. So if I'm trying to answer a question and sign the book, it doesn't go well. So trying for me to come up with some saying, I can do that when I am off camera or outside of scene or whatever. But trying to do that while I'm there is not good for me. That's not how my brain works because I want to focus on what the person is saying to me and not what I'm trying to write. However, a lot of my friends who do book signings have like 4 or 5 that they have memorized that they just rotate through, and that's what they do. So it just it and then if it's for a personal friend, obviously you're gonna, annotate it for your friend. But, yeah, no, that's I kinda gave up. If I've written you a note in there, it's because I have some connection with you.
Well, you know what's so interesting, Tracy, and you might find some value in this. I was actually signing a couple of books today. Somebody came to the house and she had children. And I said to her, recently I had my handwriting analyzed by somebody who became a new team member. It's called graphotherapy. And, when you're writing something over, sometimes it can be sloppy or it's big loops or it's this or it's that. And I was thinking about the feedback I got from my handwriting, that there's no judgment. It's just if your T is crossed here. So I was really purposefully writing. So as I'm trying to transform some of the energy that I have inside me based on the handwriting analysis. So it was actually kind of fun. So you might want to take a look at that show on YouTube. But
Oh, well, I can tell you this. When I was at the height of my caregiving and I was seriously grieving, my signature inverted. It is the weirdest thing ever, and I could not spell my name in the right order, and so if you ever see it well, you won't see it in the books, but, anything I had signed, the way I spelled actually almost went mirror image of what it was supposed to be. It was a very weird experience for me.
that's really interesting. Thank you for
Yeah.
telling us about that. I'll have to go back and look at my handwriting. It's not like we're handwriting as much as we used to, but especially when it comes to signing our name or signing a book, someone's going to have that
Mhm.
with them. And if you're like all over the place, I mean, that's okay. That's what it is. But so what I'd love to have you talk a little bit about now is, obviously there are other people who've written books on dementia. There are other people who are caregivers. There are more books that will come out. How do you stay relevant and keep your book in the front of the bookstore or top of mind?
Well, I do it by, doing ads on Facebook. And then because their AI has changed enough and learned enough that uh, I go and I mine the reviews that people leave for me. And then I say, okay, what is it that people are telling me are the best features of my book? And those are the things that I put on my little ads when I have them pop up. And it's just like from a told from a caregiver's perspective, or an easy tool to use, or whatever it is that somebody has said. I will freely mine the reviews, and I will put that in a graphic that just pops up, and I just do that on, oh gosh, what's it called? Um, I apologize, I'm going blank on whatever Meta's platform is called for the ads manager. And so, it's very easy to do. They have a learning phase, and you just have to have enough budget in there for them to be able to learn, have the AI learn what it is. And you want to do like a broad audience. They've gotten rid of targeted interests. So, because I used to do mine by targeted interests, and they were always shocked that I could get such a broad group with the really targeted interests I was doing. But they didn't understand that I was going after baby boomers, and the people that I was working with weren't baby boomers. So that was my target at the time. And now it's more broad because the average age of a caregiver for someone with dementia is 45 years old. I started at the age of 41, so I was just a little below that. But I mean, it's trying to get to the in front of the right people and give them the information that they need. I mean, I as a caregiver want to know that I've got a toolbox in my hand, that this book right here is got my screwdrivers, the screws, and all the wiring nuts and bolts that I need to get from point A to point B and have it work. So, I mean, it's just trying to make sure that you just give little snippets that get their interest. Now, you could do what is now termed an ugly ad, where it looks more like it's a TikTok video. And in the first 17 seconds, you don't even talk about your book. You talk about the issues that it solves. Okay, so for Dr. Jacalyn, for you, it has to do with listening. For me, it would be properly wandering, or it would be meltdowns, or it would be sundowning, and those would be the things that I would list, the top 3 or 5. And then, as the author, I would give another minute or whatever it is I'm going to do. I would say, okay, this is my journey. This is why it's personal to me, and this is how it can help you, and then show the book.
I love it. That's fantastic. I have just been so honored to watch your journey, which is really from your heart. It was from your heart from the very beginning, from taking care of your dad and then on through the rest of your family members. So something I'd really like to have you share feedback for people who are out there, is dementia hereditary? And if so, or if not, are there things that we can be, should be doing? I'm reading all the time that, eat olive oil and you won't have dementia. I don't know, but are there any things that we need to know about?
Okay, the answer is both yes and no. So, hereditary means that you have the ApoE4 gene or you have double ApoE3 gene. So those are the hereditary things. But it can also be from diabetes because they call Alzheimer's disease from diabetes, type 3 diabetes. But it also has to do with lifestyle. So if you are drinking excessively, using recreational drugs, taking anticholinergic medicines to go to sleep. And what I'm saying here is if you're taking Benadryl to put yourself to sleep every night, you're going to give yourself dementia. And they won't be able to tell you what type because they won't recognize that you're taking Benadryl or or maybe it's Tylenol PM or one of the anticholinergics that's in there that could be causing the problem. So there's a lot of different avenues to get there. Also, if you are eating a bunch of junk food, if you are drinking sugary drinks, if you are drinking highly caffeinated drinks, another route to get you to dementia. If you're not taking care of your hearing and you're losing your hearing, if you are not taking care of your gums, I'm talking about dental floss, people. If you do not use your dental floss, you can give yourself not only heart failure, but you can give yourself dementia. So there's a lot of roads you can go there. You have to make sure that you socialize, don't become a hermit. And then one other thing to think about is continue learning for the rest of your life. You will build synapses. If you are the person that's only doing crossword puzzles and Sudokus because that's what you're comfortable with, that's a great exercise, but it will not keep your brain healthy. By learning something new, forcing yourself to learn something new, you create stronger synapses, you create newer ones. It only takes a week to build that synapse after you started learning. So it just takes a little while to work on it. But these are the things that you can do to help dial it back. You're going to hate this for me, but eating green leafy vegetables, eating things that are low in fat, not highly processed foods. These are all things that can make a difference. And then there are foods that uh, depending on your physical makeup, can cause you problems because some people have food allergies. So, the foods that could be really good for person over here might be deadly to the person over here. So everybody's a unique snowflake, and you have to design it to around your own person. I mean, you just have to design it for yourself.
We have to take accountability for our behavior and our choices. And by the way, I'm a huge advocate of dental floss. And much to my dentist's chagrin, I own one of those sets of scraper things, which I've been using. I mean, I get new ones, but I go to the dentist, they're like, oh, you have no cavities, which thank God, I'm not putting it out there, but I have really good teeth and gums because I take care of them. And it's not something that I like doing 5 times a day, but I do it. So there you go. So. Tracy, you are also the TV show host of the Dementia Home Care Show, which is going to be on tomorrow. Tell us a little bit about that show and some of the amazing guests that you've had and will have.
Oh gosh, I am so honored to have a show on USA Global TV because this has given me access to, and I'm going to use another word for authors, platform. It has given me a platform to share my message, and I have had some of the most amazing guests. I've had Loretta Vaney, she's the Lego lady. She talks about teaching distraction techniques and communication methods for people using Legos. And since Legos have been around since the 30s, most people alive have had some interaction with Lego somewhere in their life. We've also had Kitty Isley from NPR. She talked about her podcast 24/7 and also about caregiving for her dad who had dementia. We've had, uh-oh, um, B. Oh, B, I'm so sorry. I just went blank on your name. Mazay. Anyway, B. Mazay Rhodes. I just went blank. I apologize, B. But she is phenomenal. She's a life coach, but she also took care of her mom who had dementia. and she did the virtual dementia tour. And that was my first introduction to her. Was she was telling me about the virtual dementia tour. Full disclosure, she was my neighbor for a few years, so we actually got to talk and know each other. Um, but it changed the course of how she did caregiving. And so if you look up that particular episode, you will cry, but your mind will also be blown. So then we also followed up talking to PK Bevel, the inventor of the virtual dementia tour. Uh, that's when I learned that they have inserts for the soles of your shoes so that if you notice you've got family members that are shuffling their feet, it's because they can no longer tell where the floor is, and that's their safety method for knowing where to walk. So that's what the shuffling of the feet is. That the hearing is now like tinnitus on steroids. So they have you put on headphones and you get to hear the same level of tinnitus that your loved one hears, and it makes you understand why they are so slow to respond or why they're answering with the wrong question because they're guessing what they heard you say. They also put special glasses on so that you can perceive what they're seeing. You'll get the tunnel vision. You will get the achromatopsia where you can only see certain colors and contrast with it. It is very difficult for people who have never experienced this to put this on and last longer than 6 or 7 minutes. A tour usually lasts 15 minutes. You go through some exercises and they'll ask you to, with gloves on your hands, because you're losing the sensitivity in your fingers. You have to be able to pick up coin and follow the instructions about where to put the coin. Also, jobs like just trying to tie shoelaces or getting dressed or moving around within your living space. I mean, these are all just really amazing people that I have interviewed, and Dr. Jacalyn's been with me on some of those interviews. I mean, it's been absolutely mind blowing. And tomorrow I have Felix Kravitz joining me from Cyber Easy. Cybersecurity Easy, excuse me. He is a specialist in helping seniors prevent cybersecurity breaches. So we'll be just talking about different things to help people along their journey.
Absolutely. The people you have been on are just incredible pioneers, what they have created. And also, some of the shows are very emotional. The show tomorrow with Dr. Kravitz should be good. He just joined our team, by the way. He's going to have his own show on cybersecurity. But many times, the elderly are really targets for people. And I know we got numerous phone calls here, and my mom be like, let me get that information for you. I'm like, no information. So that should be a great show. So that's at 7 a.m. Pacific time. It's at no.
No, he asked if we could do it at 11 a.m. Are we still on for 11 a.m.?
So 11 a.m. Okay, so we have to
Okay.
change the time. 11 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Pacific time. No, tell
So,
me, you tell
okay,
us.
I'm sorry.
I'm
So
coming off the screen. Zip.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so it's 11 a.m. Pacific, and I believe that would be 2 p.m. Eastern time because he's taking care of his young children during the day, and that's the time when they're not home. So we thought that would be perfect. But I'm sorry for confusing you because I know
There
that's
you
not
go.
our normal schedule.
No problem. My apologies, everyone. It's a lot of shows and hard to keep track of it all. So that is tomorrow. So do join us for that. Please go over to our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV and Radio, and look for the playlist Dementia Home Care. Tracy, what would you like to leave our audience with today?
So if you want to write a book, give yourself permission to write the book. There's no wrong way to write a book, and don't ever let anybody read your first draft. Just write it for yourself and then look at it and rewrite it, and then you can start sharing it. And there's always going to be somebody that's going to be a naysayer. Do not let that go to heart. If you choose to do it, you will succeed.
Yes, yes, yes. Great words to leave us with today. Thank you. Tracy, so wonderful to see you. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jacalyn. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.
Everyone, please do pick up your copy of this book because it is literally the Bible for dementia home care. And again, I own a copy. I've read this. I've benefit from it more than I can tell you, because when you have a loved one who has dementia and you have other things that you're doing in your life, you don't know if you're doing the right thing. And sometimes, I'll admit it, you get angry at the other person because you think, why are you doing this? I don't understand. And it's really because we don't understand. You will understand. You have all the information you need in this book. It's available on Tracy Cram Perkins' website, which we have right here. It's also available at all of your fine bookstores as well as Amazon. So please do connect with Tracy, follow her on social media, and you can follow her by going to her name, Tracy Cram Perkins, and her website is also tracycramperkins.com. Thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you to all of our friends who are on Roku, Worldwide, Amazon Fire, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all of the other platforms, Twitter, X. We really appreciate you. We're signing off now, and our next show is coming up. It is A Woman's Prerogative Part 2. We'll see you there. Bye.
The last few days have been really amazing. I had a trainer course from the British School of Etiquette.
And I must say it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made and one of the best investments I've made in my own training and development.
Now, words alone will not describe the transformation and the positive path that I have traveled with the British School of Etiquette.
I found I learned a lot from the lessons this time I came.
The last few days with the British School of Etiquette have been fantastic.
And what I've learned now is really beyond my expectations.
This is the most rewarding experience and the best investment I have made this year.
It was just great. I learned so much, and when I go back to Belgium I will incorporate a lot of it into my day-to-day life and business.
It's been absolutely wonderful for the whole week that we were here.
I feel transformed, and I feel like blowing a trumpet and tell people, come and do this school. This class is the best. This is the best school ever.
You should take it. It's just, it will change your life immediately.
I am now able to teach other people how to bring the best of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, PSK.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.